The stars appeared strange from where Commander Alex Reed stood on the UES Horizon's observation deck. His hands rested behind him as he gazed into the endless darkness. 20 years serving in Earth's United Space Force had taught him plenty, or so he believed. "Commander, you've got to see this!" Lieutenant Ben Morgan's urgent voice shattered the quiet. Even in the deck's soft lighting, the young officer looked ghostly pale. Reed turned from the window. "What's going on, Morgan?" "Sir, our long-range scanners found something heading our way from the outer system. It's massive. Truly massive." Reed walked with Morgan to the bridge, where the crew stood motionless, staring at the main display. The thing approaching them bore no resemblance to anything humanity had constructed. Its form reminded Reed of an enormous arrowhead, smooth and deliberate, with eerie, pulsing lights running along its surface. "Are they answering our signals?" Reed questioned. Communications Officer Lisa Park shook her head. "No, sir. We've broadcast on every standard channel." Reed felt that old, familiar pressure in his chest, the one that always came before fighting. "Contact Earth Command. Tell them we've got a first contact scenario here." Before Park could transmit the message, the ship's systems blinked. A heartbeat later, the main screen transformed. Rather than displaying the incoming vessel, it showed a face. At least Reed assumed it was a face. The being had 4 eyes positioned in a diamond shape, skin resembling polished stone, and no mouth Reed could identify. When it communicated, the words appeared to materialize directly inside Reed's thoughts. "Humans of Earth, we are the Vaughn. We have observed your planet for many cycles. The time for watching is finished. The time for evaluation starts now." Reed moved forward as ship commander. First contact rules made him Earth's voice. "This is Commander Alex Reed of the United Earth Space Force. We welcome friendly contact with your civilization." The alien's upper eyes became narrow. "Peace. You mention peace while your history is soaked in warfare. We have examined your fighting methods. They are crude." Reed maintained a neutral expression despite the offense. "Our history doesn't determine our tomorrow. We've brought our planet together and moved past our old wars." "Have you?" The alien's tone felt icy in Reed's consciousness. "Or have you merely found no worthy adversaries among your own species?" The bridge became deathly quiet. Reed selected his next words with care. "We choose talking over fighting, but we'll protect ourselves when needed." The alien produced a sound that could have been amusement. "You misread our intent, human. We do not make threats, we assess. I am General Dorn of the Vaughn High Command. Fighting is how we measure all species. Yours is deficient." Reed felt his jaw clench. "With respect, General, you cannot judge an entire civilization without understanding them." "But we do understand you," Dorn responded. "We have observed your conflicts, analyzed your strategies. You battle without structure, without respect. Your fighting is disorder." "Maybe you've interpreted what you've seen incorrectly," Reed proposed. Dorn's eyes glowed with blue light. "To validate our evaluation, we will send delegates to your world. Your commanders will gather with ours. If you show us something worthwhile, perhaps cooperation between our civilizations is possible." The screen darkened before Reed could answer. 3 days passed before Reed found himself in the vast meeting hall of the United Earth Government headquarters in Geneva. Earth's most powerful military and political figures waited anxiously around him. The Vaughn vessel had reached Earth orbit that morning, triggering worldwide fear despite official reassurances. President Kate Wilson walked up to Reed. "Commander, you're the only human who's communicated with them. What should we anticipate?" Reed shook his head. "They're unlike us, Madam President. They seem obsessed with fighting as a measure of worth, and they hold a low opinion of ours." Wilson's expression darkened. "That's troubling given their technology clearly surpasses ours." Before Reed could reply, the room's enormous door slid open. 5 Vaughn entered, each standing at least 7 feet tall, their stone-like skin shining under the lights, and they moved with absolute precision, like components of a single organism. General Dorn headed the group, his 4 eyes surveying the room before fixing on Reed. The observer, he stated, the words again appearing directly in everyone's consciousness. "You will interpret our ideas if necessary." President Wilson stepped forward, offering her hand in greeting. "General Dorn, welcome to Earth. I'm President Kate Wilson." Dorn disregarded her hand. "Your greeting traditions are acknowledged but not required. We are here to assess, not to establish relationships." Wilson brought her hand down slowly. Assess what precisely? Your merit, Dorn answered plainly. The universe holds many civilizations. Resources are limited. Those who cannot protect themselves cannot claim a position among the stars. Admiral James Turner, commander of Earth's unified military, moved beside Wilson. Are you making threats, General? Dorn's upper eyes blinked deliberately. No threat, simply truth. Demonstrate your fighting abilities. Show us you comprehend the nature of war. Turner looked at Wilson, who gave a slight nod. We can organize demonstrations of our military equipment and strategies. Good, Dorn stated. But first, we will present ours to set a standard. One of the other Vaughn moved forward, carrying what appeared to be a small metal sphere. He set it on the floor and moved back. The sphere lifted into the air, creating a three-dimensional image of a planet similar to Earth. This was the home of the Krell, Dorn described. They also believed they grasped fighting. The planet in the projection suddenly burst with explosions, whole continents vanishing in flashes of brightness. Within moments, nothing remained except a lifeless, smoking sphere. The room fell utterly silent. That, Dorn stated quietly, is refined warfare. Swift, efficient, absolute. President Wilson's face had turned pale. That's not warfare. That's extermination. Dorn's eyes pulsed. A pointless distinction. The goal of warfare is triumph. Reed felt nauseated watching the projection. He stepped forward. The goal of warfare is to accomplish objectives. Complete annihilation is seldom the objective. Dorn turned to him. Clarify. War isn't about obliterating your opponent entirely, Reed stated. It's about reaching specific aims with the least force required. Sometimes the aim is making your opponent cease fighting without destroying them. Wasteful, another Vaughn interjected. Admiral Turner contributed. Not remotely. If you destroy everything, what have you gained? A barren rock. Real victory maintains what you're fighting for. Dorn made a rejecting gesture. Empty words. We need demonstration, not theory. Tomorrow we will witness your military capabilities. As the Vaughn delegation left, Reed met President Wilson's gaze. She signaled him to follow her to a private chamber where Admiral Turner and several other officials assembled. Thoughts? Wilson asked the group. Turner spoke first. They're evaluating us. If they wanted to annihilate us, they could have already. I concur, Reed stated, but I'm worried about their obsession with combat superiority. They clearly don't grasp our approach to conflict. Dr. Anna Lee, the chief xenopsychologist, shook her head. Their entire society seems constructed around fighting as the ultimate measure of value. To them, our hesitation to embrace absolute war might appear as weakness, not intelligence. So what do we present them tomorrow? Wilson asked. Turner pondered this. Our finest technologies, certainly. But I believe Commander Reed should guide the demonstrations. Reed looked startled. Sir, you've participated in more battles than anyone else here. Turner clarified. From the Arctic Resource Wars to the Mars Colony Rebellion, you comprehend fighting in various environments against various adversaries. And more crucially, you understand that fighting is about more than simple destruction. Wilson nodded. I agree. Commander Reed, you'll command the demonstration team. Show the Vaughn that humans grasp combat better than they assume. The following morning, Reed stood on the enormous training grounds of the North American Defense Complex. Behind him, Earth's most sophisticated battle systems were positioned for display. Tanks, aircraft, power armor units, and even a small orbital strike platform had been readied. The Vaughn delegation arrived exactly on schedule, moving in flawless formation as always. General Dorn approached Reed. Proceed, was all he stated. For the following 3 hours, Reed guided demonstrations of Earth's military strength. Tanks demolished obstacles. Aircraft executed impossible maneuvers. Soldiers in power armor showed their amplified strength and velocity. Throughout it all, the Vaughn observed without reaction, their stone faces impossible to interpret. Finally, Reed brought them to the command center, where a large simulation screen filled one wall. This is our combat simulation system, Reed described. We employ it to train officers and evaluate strategies without endangering lives. Dorn's eyes glowed with curiosity. Show us. Reed nodded to the technician who initiated the simulation. It displayed a hugely outnumbered human force protecting against an overwhelming adversary. This scenario is unwinnable through direct conflict, Reed described. The defending force must utilize the terrain, psychological tactics, and unconventional methods. The Vaughn observed as the simulated human forces divided, established ambushes, severed supply lines, and gradually eroded their numerically superior adversary without ever participating in a direct battle. When the simulation concluded with the larger force surrendering, Dorn turned to Reed. "This is not fighting. This is deception." Reed smiled faintly. "This is human warfare, General. We developed fighting not just one another, but the cruelest environments of our planet. We discovered how to employ every edge to adjust to any circumstance. Sometimes the wisest strategy is preventing direct conflict entirely." Dorn's eyes grew darker. "Deception and evasion. These are not the characteristics of real fighters." "With respect," Reed answered, "surviving against superior forces is precisely what defines real fighters. Anyone can triumph with overwhelming power. The genuine challenge is winning when everything opposes you." For an extended moment, Dorn stared at Reed. Then he turned to his companions and made a series of clicking noises. Their actual language, Reed understood. After what appeared like a disagreement, Dorn faced Reed again. "Your demonstrations have been informative, Commander, but unpersuasive. Real fighting follows structure, discipline, overwhelming power. Your method is primitive, depending on disorder and deception." Reed felt his patience diminishing. "General, with all respect, you're overlooking the point. There is no single real combat. Fighting develops based on need and circumstances." "Enough," Dorn stated sharply. "We have witnessed adequate evidence. Humans are unfit for galactic partnership. Your combat philosophy is fundamentally broken." As the Vaughn turned to depart, Reed called after them. "You're making an error, General. You believe you comprehend combat, but you've only experienced one type." Dorn stopped. "Is that a challenge, Commander?" Reed held his position. "It's a reality, and if you compel us to demonstrate it, you might not appreciate the education." Dorn's eyes flashed. "Then let the education commence. In one Earth month, we will return to examine your combat worthiness directly. Make yourselves ready." As the Vaughn left, Reed felt the burden of what had just transpired. He had essentially initiated a war with an alien civilization far more technologically advanced than Earth. Admiral Turner approached him. "Well, that could have proceeded better." Reed shook his head. "They never planned for it to proceed well, sir. They've already concluded we're inferior. Now they want to demonstrate it. Can we defeat them?" Turner asked quietly. Reed watched the Vaughn ship ascend into the sky. "Not their method, but they don't grasp human warfare yet, and that might be our sole edge." Turner nodded grimly. "Then we'd better make it matter. 1 month to ready ourselves for war with an opponent we barely comprehend." 1 month, Reed confirmed, to demonstrate what human warfare truly means. 1 month wasn't sufficient time to prepare for conflict. Commander Alex Reed understood this better than anyone as he stood in the underground war room beneath Geneva. Around him, Earth's finest military minds debated loudly over plans and tactics. "We should attack first." General Harris slammed his fist on the table. "Use everything we possess before they come back." Admiral Turner shook his head. "With what?" "Their vessels can traverse solar systems. Ours barely reach Mars. We hide then," another officer proposed. "Disperse our forces. Go underground." President Wilson raised her hand for quiet. The room silenced immediately. "These proposals assume we've already been defeated. I didn't select any of you for your pessimistic attitudes." She turned to Reed. "Commander, you've had more interaction with the Vaughn than anyone. What's your evaluation?" All eyes shifted to Reed. He took a deep breath. "The Vaughn are technologically superior, yes, but they have vulnerabilities. Their approach to fighting is inflexible, foreseeable. They value structure and overwhelming force above everything else. And how does that assist us?" General Harris questioned. Reed walked to the holographic display in the center of the room. "May I?" At President Wilson's nod, Reed activated the system. A 3-dimensional map of Earth's solar system materialized. "The Vaughn will anticipate us defending Earth directly. That's what they would do. Concentrate forces around their home planet." Reed adjusted the display, marking various points throughout the system. "But we won't. We'll disperse our forces here, here, and here." Admiral Turner examined the map. "Those are all minor outposts, mining stations barely worth protecting." "Precisely," Reed stated. "Locations they won't anticipate resistance. Locations where small mobile forces can attack and vanish." Guerrilla warfare, President Wilson stated thoughtfully. Against an alien invasion. Reed nodded. The Vaughn comprehend direct confrontation. They anticipate it. What they don't comprehend is adaptation, unpredictability. He looked around the room. Our history is packed with examples of smaller forces conquering larger ones through unconventional tactics. Theory is one thing, General Harris grumbled. Practice is another. Then let's put it into practice, President Wilson decided. Commander Reed, I'm appointing you in command of a special task force. You'll have whatever resources you require to study Vaughn combat capabilities and create countermeasures. Reed stood straighter. Yes, Madam President. The rest of you will organize global defenses. If the Vaughn do target Earth directly, we must be prepared. She looked at each person in the room. 1 month, make it matter. 2 weeks passed before Reed sat in a small office at the Lunar Research Base, surrounded by screens displaying Vaughn ship movements. Since their ultimatum, the alien vessels had stayed at the edge of the solar system, occasionally sending small scout ships nearer to Earth. A knock on the door broke his concentration. Come in. A man Reed didn't know entered, carrying a tablet. He was older, with gray hair and glasses that seemed oddly outdated in an era of corrective surgery. Commander Reed, I'm Jack Wilson, History Department at Oxford. Admiral Turner sent me. Reed raised an eyebrow. A historian? I was anticipating another tactical analyst. Wilson smiled faintly. I am a tactical analyst, just not the type you're accustomed to. I specialize in historical warfare patterns. Reed gestured to a chair. What can a historian tell me about battling aliens, Professor? Perhaps nothing, Wilson conceded, sitting down. Or perhaps everything. May I? He pointed to the screens showing Vaughn movements. Reed nodded, and Wilson examined the displays for several minutes in silence. Fascinating, he finally stated. Their patrol patterns are remarkably regular, almost ancient. Ancient, Wilson nodded. They move like Persian immortals or Roman legions. Flawless formation, predictable rotations, distinct command structure. He looked at Reed. When's the last time human armies battled like that? Reed considered this. Not since before the urban wars of the 2030s. Modern warfare is too fluid, too reliant on small unit actions. Precisely. Wilson pulled up data on his tablet and transferred it to Reed's main screen. Look at these historical battle formations spanning Earth's history. Roman testudo, Napoleonic squares, early 21st century fire teams. Reed watched as the display presented the evolution of human battle tactics over centuries. See the pattern? Wilson asked. As weapons developed, formations loosened. As communication improved, units became smaller and more independent. The Vaughn, they're like an army frozen in history, all the technology in the universe, but their tactical approach looks positively medieval. Reed leaned forward, suddenly intrigued. You're suggesting they fight like ancient armies despite advanced technology? I'm proposing, Wilson stated carefully, that their entire concept of conflict may be fundamentally different from ours. They appear to value structure and hierarchy above adaptability. Their technology has progressed, but their tactics haven't needed to because they've never encountered an opponent who compelled them to develop. Until now, Reed stated quietly. Wilson nodded. Perhaps, but there's something else you should observe. He pulled up another file. This is all the data we have on Vaughn physical traits. Reed reviewed the information: stone-like skin, 4 eyes providing remarkable peripheral vision, communication that seemed both verbal and telepathic. They developed as herd predators, Wilson described, moving and hunting in groups. Their 4 eyes let them observe in all directions while moving in flawless coordination. Their telepathic abilities, or whatever they are, enable instant communication between squad members, making them perfect soldiers, Reed realized. Perfect soldiers for their style of warfare, Wilson corrected, which is why they can't grasp ours. We develop differently. Humans are persistence hunters. We track, we adjust, we outlast. Our strength isn't in our natural armor or telepathy, it's in our endurance and our ingenuity. Reed stood and paced the small office. So, you're suggesting we can't defeat them at their game, but they can't defeat us at ours, Wilson completed for him. At least that's my hypothesis. The problem is we don't know enough about them to be sure. As if on cue, an alarm sounded. Reed rushed to the main console. What's occurring? Lieutenant Morgan's voice came through the speakers. Commander, we have Vaughn ships approaching the asteroid belt mining station. They're moving rapidly. Reed felt a chill. The mining station was nearly unprotected, staffed by civilians with only a small security detail. "Connect me through to Admiral Turner," Reed ordered. Moments later, Turner's face appeared on screen. "Reed, are you witnessing this?" "Yes, sir. The mining station doesn't have a chance if the Vaughn attack." Turner's expression was somber. "The station has transmitted distress calls. We have 2 patrol ships in the area, but they're not equipped for combat against Vaughn technology." Reed made a swift decision. "Order them to evacuate the civilians but remain in the area." "Tell them not to engage directly and just let the Vaughn destroy the station?" Turner asked. "No," Reed stated, an idea forming. "Tell them to use the asteroid field, hide there, establish observation posts. I want every piece of data they can collect on Vaughn combat tactics." He looked at Wilson. "If the professor is correct, we need to confirm the Vaughn's vulnerabilities before the real battle starts." The asteroid belt mining station was a collection of interconnected modules attached to a large metal-rich rock. Nearly 50 miners and their families lived there, extracting valuable minerals for Earth's industries. Captain Lee of the patrol ship UES Swift watched through her view screen as the evacuation ships pulled away from the station. Her orders from Commander Reed had been clear. "Rescue the civilians, then observe and collect intelligence." "All civilians clear, Captain," her first officer reported. "Good. Now take us into the asteroid field. Passive sensors only." The Swift slipped between tumbling rocks, using them as cover. The second patrol ship, UES Harrier, did the same on the opposite side of the field. 3 Vaughn vessels approached the now-abandoned mining station. Unlike their enormous mothership, these were smaller, perhaps frigates or destroyers by human classification. They moved in flawless triangular formation, recording everything, the sensor officer stated, getting excellent data on their propulsion systems, energy signatures. Captain Lee watched as the Vaughn ships surrounded the station. "What are they doing?" Instead of opening fire immediately, the 3 ships positioned themselves at equal distances around the station. Then at the same instant, they fired. The station vanished in a blinding flash. "Complete destruction," the first officer whispered. "There's nothing left but fragments." Lee gripped her chair. "That level of coordination in their attack, it's like they're a single being." "Captain," the communications officer interrupted. "We're receiving a signal from the Vaughn ships. I think they're communicating to each other." "Can you intercept it?" "Attempting, but it's like nothing I've ever witnessed. Partly normal transmission, partly something else. It's as if they're sharing thoughts directly." Suddenly, one of the Vaughn ships changed direction, heading straight for the asteroid field where the Swift was hiding. "They've spotted us," Lee realized. "Evasive maneuvers. Get deeper into the field." The Swift accelerated, weaving between asteroids. The Vaughn ship followed, its movements accurate but somehow mechanical. "They're not adjusting to the terrain," the pilot noted with surprise. "They're maintaining formation even though they're alone." Lee saw the opportunity. "Use the asteroids. Get behind that large one ahead." The Swift ducked behind a house-sized rock. The Vaughn ship followed the exact same path the Swift had taken, clearly expecting the human vessel to continue in a straight line. Instead, the Swift had stopped and reversed. As the Vaughn ship passed, Lee gave the order. "Fire everything we have at their engine section." The Swift's weapons weren't designed to take on alien warships, but concentrated fire at close range had an effect. The Vaughn ship's engines flickered and failed. "Direct hit," the weapons officer called out. But the damaged Vaughn ship wasn't defenseless. It rotated with surprising velocity and fired at the Swift. "Evasive," Lee shouted, but it was too late. The blast caught the Swift's port side, tearing through its hull. Emergency systems activated, sealing compartments as atmosphere vented into space. "Hull breach in sections 3 through 7, an officer reported. "We've lost engines." Lee hit the ship-wide comm. "All hands abandon ship. Get to the escape pods." As her crew rushed to evacuate, Lee stayed at her station long enough to send one final message to Earth Command. Vaughn ships destroyed mining station. Swift engaged one vessel, confirmed their vulnerability. They don't adjust to unpredictable movements. Their coordination is flawless but rigid. We managed to damage one before they hit us. The Harrier is still undetected. Swift is lost. Sending all sensor data now. She hit the transmission button just as a second blast from the Vaughn ship tore through the bridge. Back on the lunar base, Reed received the Swift's final transmission with a heavy heart. Captain Lee and half her crew were lost. but their sacrifice had provided invaluable information. "They proved your hypothesis correct," Reed told Professor Wilson as they reviewed the data. "The Vaughn maintain flawless formation even when it's not tactically sound. They follow foreseeable patterns." Wilson nodded solemnly. "And now they've drawn first blood. The war has truly started." Admiral Turner's face appeared on the main screen. "Commander, we've just received word from the President. The Vaughn have sent a message. They state the attack on the mining station was a combat evaluation exercise. They're giving us one more week to, and I quote, demonstrate worthy combat capability or face systematic elimination." Reed's jaw tightened. "They still believe this is some kind of test. They don't even recognize they're in a real war. What's our response?" Turner asked. Reed looked at the tactical display showing the damaged Vaughn ship still drifting in the asteroid field. "Tell the Harrier to continue observation, but stay hidden, and get me everything we have on electronic warfare systems." "Electronic warfare?" Wilson asked after Turner's image disappeared. Reed's eyes narrowed. "If the Vaughn communicate partly through some form of telepathy, maybe we can interrupt it, break their perfect coordination. And if we can't..." Reed looked at the images of the destroyed mining station. "Then we make them fight our way in chaotic environments on our terms. They believed they understood combat, Professor. It's time we show them how mistaken they are." The red dust of Mars swirled around the colony dome as emergency sirens wailed. Inside the main control room, Colony Director Tom Miller watched in horror as 5 Vaughn warships descended from orbit. "Everyone to the emergency shelters," he ordered through the colony-wide communication system. "This is not a drill. The Mars colony was humanity's pride, the first permanent settlement on another world. Nearly 5,000 people called it home, most civilians working in research and resource extraction. Its defenses were minimal, designed more for meteor protection than war. Miller opened a direct channel to Earth. Mars colony to Earth command. Vaughn ships in orbit, evacuation in progress, requesting immediate assistance." Millions of miles away in the war room beneath Geneva, Commander Reed received the transmission. 3 weeks had passed since the asteroid belt incident, and Earth had been bracing for the Vaughn's next move. "They're attacking Mars," Reed informed the gathered military leaders. "Full invasion force." President Wilson's face hardened. "How many people are at risk?" "Nearly 5,000 civilians," Admiral Turner replied. "And only 100 security personnel. We need to get them out of there," General Harris stated. Reed shook his head. "We don't have time. Mars is 3 days away at our fastest speed." But he paused, an idea forming. "Maybe we don't need to evacuate them." All eyes turned to him. "What are you proposing, Commander?" President Wilson asked. Reed activated the holographic display showing the Mars colony layout. The colony has an extensive network of underground tunnels, mining operations, research labs, storage facilities, places the colonists know like the backs of their hands, and the Vaughn don't, Professor Wilson added, catching on quickly. Reed nodded. "Precisely. If the colonists can get underground, they can battle in an environment that negates Vaughn advantages and plays to human strengths." "They're civilians, not soldiers," General Harris objected. "They don't need to be soldiers," Reed countered. "They just need to survive and make the Vaughn pay for every inch of ground." He looked at President Wilson. "We need to get them instructions quickly." Wilson didn't hesitate. "Do it and prepare our fleet. Even if it takes 3 days, we're going to Mars." On Mars, Director Miller received Reed's transmission with growing disbelief. "You want us to fight?" he asked incredulously. "We're scientists, engineers, miners, not warriors." Reed's face on the screen was sympathetic, but firm. "I'm not asking you to win a war, Director, just to survive until help arrives. The underground tunnels are your advantage. The Vaughn fight in formation in open spaces. Make them come to you one by one in the dark." Miller glanced at his security chief, a former military officer named James Rivera. "Can we do this?" Rivera considered the question seriously. The mining equipment could be repurposed. Drills, cutters, even the heavy machinery in the narrow tunnels. They might be effective. "And we know the tunnels," Miller realized. "Every fork, every dead end." "Precisely," Reed confirmed. "Set traps. Create false routes. Make them chase shadows while you pick them off from hidden positions. We're sending help, but you need to hold out." As if to emphasize the urgency, the colony dome shuddered under the first Vaughn attack. Miller straightened his back. "We'll do what we can. Mars colony out," He turned to Rivera. Get everyone underground and gather every tool, every piece of equipment that could serve as a weapon. We're about to give these aliens a lesson in human resourcefulness. The first Vaughn soldiers entered the Mars colony 2 hours later, moving in flawless formation through the abandoned main dome. 3 rows of 10 warriors each, their stone-like bodies protected by shimmering energy fields, weapons at the ready. They found nothing but empty buildings. Their commander, a sub-general named Krav, ordered a systematic search. The Vaughn spread out in groups of 5, still maintaining precise distances between each soldier. In the primary mining tunnel, a group of Vaughn soldiers advanced cautiously. Lights mounted on their weapons, illuminating the dusty passageway. From his hiding place in a side tunnel, Dr. Peter Williams, a geologist who had never held a weapon in his life, watched them approach. Beside him, 3 miners gripped makeshift weapons, drill bits attached to metal poles, mining lasers reconfigured to higher power. Williams waited until the lead Vaughn passed the junction, then pressed the button on his remote. The explosives they had placed, originally used for clearing rock formations, detonated. The tunnel collapsed behind the Vaughn group, cutting them off from their companions. At the same time, mining equipment fell from the ceiling ahead of them, blocking their forward path. Trapped and isolated, the 5 Vaughn soldiers formed a defensive circle, backs together, weapons outward, a flawless formation for an open battlefield, but useless in the narrow tunnel. From multiple hidden passages, the colonists attacked. Mining lasers burned through Vaughn energy shields. Heavy drilling equipment normally used to bore through Martian rock proved equally effective against alien armor. The battle was brief and one-sided. When it ended, 5 Vaughn warriors lay dead, and the colonists melted back into the tunnel network to prepare their next ambush. Similar scenes played out across the colony's underground system. The Vaughn, trained to fight in coordinated groups in open terrain, found themselves at a severe disadvantage in the cramped maze-like tunnels. On Earth, Reed monitored the situation through sporadic updates from Mars. The colony was holding out better than anyone had anticipated. The Vaughn losses were mounting while the colonists, fighting on familiar ground with improvised weapons, had suffered relatively few casualties. They're not adjusting, Professor Wilson noted as they reviewed reports. The Vaughn keep sending soldiers into the tunnels in the same formations using the same tactics despite heavy losses. Reed nodded. They don't understand how to fight any other way. Their entire combat approach is based on overwhelming force and flawless coordination, which means nothing in the tunnels, Admiral Turner added. Their telepathic communication is interrupted underground. Their formations are useless in narrow spaces, and their technology gives them no edge in close quarters. Reed studied the latest report from Mars. Director Miller states they've destroyed nearly a third of the Vaughn ground forces, but the aliens are bringing in heavier weapons trying to collapse the tunnel network. President Wilson's image appeared on the main screen. Commander, our fleet is ready to launch. 8 warships are best. They'll reach Mars in 3 days. Will that be soon enough? Turner asked quietly. Reed couldn't answer. The Mars colony was exceeding all expectations. But they were still civilians fighting professional warriors. Sooner or later, the Vaughn would adjust or simply bring enough firepower to obliterate the entire colony from orbit. We need a diversion, Reed stated suddenly. Something to draw Vaughn attention away from Mars until our fleet arrives. What did you have in mind? Wilson asked. Reed pointed to a section of the solar system display. Jupiter's moons. The research stations there. Small but strategic. If we can make the Vaughn believe we're mounting an offensive from Jupiter, they might divert forces from Mars. We don't have enough ships to mount a real offensive, Turner objected. We don't need real ships, Reed replied. Just signals that look like ships. He turned to the communications officer. How quickly can we deploy communication buoys programmed to mimic warship signatures? The officer thought for a moment. 12 hours to program them, another 18 to position them near Jupiter. Do it, President Wilson ordered. Make it look like we're gathering a fleet behind Jupiter's moons. As the officers rushed to implement the plan, Professor Wilson approached Reed. A deception strategy quite effective throughout human military history. Reed nodded. Let's hope it works on aliens, too. On the Vaughn command ship orbiting Mars, General Dorn received the report of another failed assault on the underground complex. His upper eyes narrowed in frustration. Unacceptable, he stated to his officers. These humans are untrained civilians. How are they defeating our elite warriors? Sub-Commander Vex displayed the casualty figures. They refuse to fight properly, General. They hide, they set traps. They strike from shadows. There is no respect in their methods. Honor is irrelevant, Dorn snapped. Results matter. Increase orbital bombardment. Collapse all tunnel entrances. We have detected unusual activity near Jupiter, another officer reported. Multiple ship signatures appearing behind Callisto. Analysis suggests a human fleet gathering. Dorn studied the data. A fleet at Jupiter could threaten his position at Mars, potentially cutting off his forces from their return path. A flanking maneuver, he concluded. Clever but futile, he made a quick decision. Send 2 warships to investigate and neutralize this threat. Continue operations here. As the orders were relayed, Dorn couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. The humans were not fighting according to any combat approach he recognized. They refused to meet superior force with direct resistance. Instead, they scattered, hid, struck from unexpected angles. It was unsettling. Back in the Mars tunnels, Director Miller received word of the approaching Earth fleet with enormous relief. They had held out for 2 days, but casualties were mounting. The Vaughn had begun systematically collapsing tunnel sections from orbit, forcing the colonists deeper underground. 3 more days, he told his exhausted people. We just need to hold on for 3 more days. Security Chief Rivera looked doubtful. The main life support systems are failing. Air recyclers weren't designed for this many people in the deep tunnels. Miller nodded grimly. I know, but we've come this far. We can't give up now. A young engineer named Anna Park approached them. Director, I have an idea. The Vaughn communication system, we've been monitoring it. It's partly electronic, partly something else. Maybe telepathic, maybe quantum, but the electronic part, we might be able to jam it. Miller looked interested. How? The colony's main communication array, Park described. If we reconfigure it to broadcast on their frequencies using rotating encryption patterns, we might disrupt their coordination. The array is in the main dome, Rivera pointed out. Under Vaughn control. Park nodded. I know, but there's maintenance access through the emergency tunnels. A small team could reach it. Miller considered the plan. It was risky, but if it worked, do it. Take whoever you need. 12 hours later, as the Vaughn prepared another assault on the tunnel network, their communication system suddenly filled with static. Orders became garbled. Coordination between units broke down. In orbit, General Dorn experienced the disruption firsthand. The constant background connection with his officers, the shared consciousness that made Vaughn military operations so effective, fragmented into chaos. Find the source, he ordered as his ship systems fluctuated. Locate and destroy it, but the damage was done on the ground. Vaughn units lost formation. Individual soldiers making decisions without the guiding intelligence of their commanders. Some continued the assault on the tunnels. Others retreated to defensive positions. The flawless coordination that defined Vaughn combat dissolved. The colonists seized the opportunity, launching counterattacks from multiple tunnel exits at once. Vaughn soldiers, unused to fighting as individuals, fell back in disarray. In the confusion, no one noticed the small Earth ship that dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Martian atmosphere. A fast scout vessel that had pushed its engines beyond safety limits to arrive ahead of the main fleet. Commander Reed had come to Mars personally, unable to wait while others fought his battle. His voice crackled through the colony's communication system. Mars Colony, this is Commander Reed. The cavalry has arrived early. The rest of the fleet is right behind me. In the command tunnel, Director Miller's tired face broke into a smile. Commander, you have no idea how good it is to hear your voice. I'm getting reports of Vaughn confusion, Reed replied. You're doing this? Miller nodded, though Reed couldn't see it. Our engineer reconfigured our comm array to jam their signals. They don't seem to know how to fight without their hive mind. Perfect, Reed stated. Now let's finish this. I'm sending down tactical data on Vaughn ship vulnerabilities. Target their command and control systems first. As the information transmitted, Miller gathered his people for one final push. The Vaughn believed they understood combat, he told them. It's time to show them how mistaken they were. Above Mars, the first ships of Earth's fleet appeared. Weapons charged and ready for battle. The war for Mars and perhaps humanity's future had reached its turning point. The battle for Mars raged across the red planet's orbit. Earth's fleet, though smaller and less advanced than the Vaughn ships, fought with unexpected effectiveness. Commander Reed aboard the flagship UES Defender watched as human vessels darted between the larger alien warships, striking quickly before retreating. Another hit on the Vaughn command ship. Lieutenant Morgan reported their shields are weakening. Reed nodded, studying the tactical display. 6 Earth warships against 4 remaining Vaughn vessels. The odds were improving, but victory was far from certain. "Keep targeting their communication arrays," Reed ordered. "Don't let them reestablish their network." On the Vaughn command ship, General Dorn struggled to comprehend what was happening. His warriors, the elite of the Vaughn military, were losing to a technologically inferior opponent. Without their telepathic coordination, Vaughn ships fought as individuals, something they had never trained for. "This is impossible," Dorn growled to his bridge officers. "Their vessels are primitive, their weapons inferior." Sub-Commander Vex studied the battle data. "They do not fight as we anticipated, General. They avoid direct confrontation, strike vulnerable points, retreat before we can respond effectively." "Cowardice," another officer declared. "No," Dorn stated slowly, his 4 eyes narrowing. "Not cowardice, strategy. They know they cannot match our power, so they fight differently." He watched as an Earth ship darted beneath a Vaughn cruiser, fired at point-blank range, then vanished behind Mars's smaller moon. "They are adjusting." The battle continued for hours, neither side gaining decisive advantage. Then a transmission broke through on all frequencies. "This is President Kate Wilson of Earth. General Dorn, hear me. This conflict can end now. Withdraw your forces and we can discuss terms." Dorn's upper eyes pulsed with anger. Surrender to an inferior species. Unthinkable. But even as he spoke, another Vaughn ship exploded, its reactor core breached by a concentrated attack from 3 Earth vessels. "Sir," Vex stated quietly, "our forces are at 40% combat effectiveness." Without the coordination network, Dorn made a harsh gesture, silencing him. "Open a channel." The general's face appeared on President Wilson's screen in the Geneva War Room. "Human leader, your resistance is unexpected but futile. We may lose this battle, but the Vaughn Collective has many fleets. You cannot hope to survive a full-scale war." Wilson's expression remained calm. "Perhaps, but ask yourself this, General. If your elite force is struggling against our hastily assembled defense, what will happen when you face our full military capacity? When we have time to prepare, to build new weapons specifically designed to target your vulnerabilities?" Dorn's silence was telling. "We don't want war, General," Wilson continued. "We want to live in peace, but if forced to fight, humans will fight with everything we have, and we are remarkably good at adjusting to overcome stronger opponents." After a long moment, Dorn responded. "A temporary cessation of hostilities may be practical to reassess." Wilson nodded. "Agreed. Withdraw your forces from Mars orbit. We will not pursue." As the transmission ended, Admiral Turner looked at Wilson with raised eyebrows. "Do you believe they'll honor it?" "For now," she replied. "They need time to understand what just happened. So do we." 1 week later, Commander Reed stood before the United Earth Government Council in Geneva. The Vaughn fleet had retreated beyond Neptune, maintaining position but taking no hostile action. "The battle for Mars taught us something crucial," Reed described to the assembled leaders. "The Vaughn aren't invincible. They have significant vulnerabilities we can exploit." He activated the presentation screen, showing footage from the Martian conflict. First, they rely heavily on their telepathic network for coordination. When we disrupted it, their effectiveness dropped dramatically. Professor Wilson stepped forward. Second, their combat approach is inflexible, designed for overwhelming force in direct confrontation. They struggle with guerrilla tactics, asymmetric warfare, and rapidly changing battle conditions. Admiral Turner added, "Our analysis suggests the Vaughn have rarely, if ever, faced an opponent that forced them to adjust. Their technological superiority has always been enough." President Wilson considered this information. "So what's our strategy moving forward?" "They're still technologically superior, and the general mentioned other fleets." Reed nodded. "We use the time they've given us, develop weapons specifically designed to disrupt their coordination network, train our forces in tactics the Vaughn can't counter." And he paused. "We learn more about them, understand why they fight the way they do. We've been analyzing everything we captured," Professor Wilson stated. "Their language, technology, historical records from their ship's databases. It's revealed something fascinating." He displayed a series of alien star charts on the screen. "The Vaughn have conquered 12 star systems before encountering us. In each case, they faced species that evolved from solitary predators or prey animals. Species that, when they developed civilization, built military forces modeled after their natural predator-prey relationships. "What's your point?" General Harris asked impatiently. "Humans are different," Wilson described. "We evolved as social hunters. Our early warfare was against other humans, enemies who thought like us, adjusted like us, learned from defeat. Every human conflict throughout history has been a contest of adaptation, of outthinking an equally intelligent opponent." Reed picked up the thread. "The Vaughn have never faced an opponent like us, one that evolved fighting itself. That's why they don't grasp our combat methods. They've never needed to develop the flexibility, the creative thinking that human warfare demands." The council chamber fell silent as this realization sank in. Finally, President Wilson spoke. "So our greatest weapon isn't technology or numbers. It's our history of conflict. The fact that we've spent thousands of years learning to fight and adjust against ourselves." "Precisely," Reed confirmed. "The very thing the Vaughn criticized, our chaotic, unpredictable approach to combat, is what they can't counter." "If you're correct," Turner stated, "we need to press this advantage while we have it, before they adjust to our methods." Reed shook his head. "I don't believe they can adjust quickly. Their entire civilization, their biology, their psychology, it's all built around hierarchy and structure. Change doesn't come easily to them." "So, what's your recommendation, Commander?" President Wilson asked. Reed straightened. "We take the fight to them, not as a full-scale invasion. We're not ready for that. But a mission, a strike at the heart of their fleet to show them what humans are truly capable of." "That sounds like a suicide mission," General Harris objected. "High risk," Reed admitted, "but high reward. If we can capture Dorn himself, force negotiations from a position of strength." President Wilson considered the proposal carefully. "Who would lead this mission?" Reed's answer was simple: "I would." 3 days later, Reed sat in the briefing room of the UES Paragon, a stealth vessel specially modified for the coming mission. Around him were 20 of Earth's best Special Forces operators, men and women chosen for their adaptability and unconventional thinking. "The mission is straightforward," Reed described. "We approach the Vaughn fleet using the stealth technology developed from studying their sensors. We board General Dorn's command ship, capture him, and return with him to Earth." Captain Maya Singh, the team's tactical leader, looked skeptical. "Straightforward doesn't mean easy, Commander. Once we're aboard, how do we find the general? How do we subdue him?" Reed nodded to Professor Wilson, who had insisted on joining the mission as a scientific advisor. "The Vaughn ship layouts are hierarchical, just like their society," Wilson described. "Command centers are always at the highest point, surrounded by layers of defenses. Based on the data we've gathered, we can map a path through their vessel." He displayed a holographic model of the Vaughn command ship. "Their internal security relies on the same coordination network we disrupted at Mars. We've developed portable jammers that should create corridors of confusion as we move through the ship." Singh studied the model and the general himself. "The Vaughn are physically stronger than humans with natural armor." Reed activated another display showing new weapons and equipment. "That's why we've developed these sonic disruptors that affect their stone-like skin, neural scramblers that temporarily block their telepathic abilities, and most importantly, adaptive armor that can withstand their energy weapons." The room fell silent as the team examined the new technology. "Everything we're using," Reed continued, "has been developed by studying Vaughn vulnerabilities. We're not trying to match their strength or technology. We're exploiting the gaps in their capabilities." Singh nodded slowly. "Fighting our way, not theirs. Precisely. Questions?" A young lieutenant raised his hand. "Sir, what if we can't capture Dorn? What's our fallback plan?" Reed's expression grew serious. "Then we gather as much intelligence as possible and retreat. This isn't about winning a battle. It's about showing the Vaughn that humanity isn't the primitive species they thought we were." As the briefing concluded, Wilson approached Reed privately. "You didn't tell them the full reason for this mission." Reed glanced around to ensure they weren't overheard. "They don't need to know yet. If we can access the Vaughn Central Database, we might learn about their home world," Wilson finished. "Their total military strength, whether this is just one fleet or their entire force." Reed nodded. "Knowledge is our most powerful weapon right now. Let's hope we get the chance to use it." The journey to the Vaughn fleet took 5 days. The Paragon, running without active sensors or communications, slipped through the outer solar system like a ghost. Its hull, coated with materials that absorbed rather than reflected energy, was nearly invisible to Vaughn detection systems. Reed spent the time studying everything they knew about Vaughn psychology. Know your opponent was an ancient human principle of warfare that seemed especially relevant now. As they approached Neptune's orbit, where the Vaughn fleet maintained position, Wilson joined Reed on the bridge. "Nervous?" the professor asked quietly. Reed gave a slight smile. "Focused. There's a difference." "Indeed." Wilson looked out at the distant stars. "You know, throughout human history, we've often feared meeting aliens. We assumed they would be more advanced, more unified, more flawless than us. And instead, we got the Vaughn," Reed stated. "Advanced, yes, but with their own limitations." Wilson nodded. "Our fractious nature, our history of conflict, the very things we sometimes see as humanity's greatest flaws, may be our greatest strengths against them." The ship's captain interrupted their conversation. "Commander, we're approaching the Vaughn fleet. Stealth systems functioning at optimal levels. No indication they've detected us." Reed moved to the tactical display. The Vaughn fleet was arranged in a flawless geometric pattern, each ship maintaining precise distance from the others. At the center was Dorn's command vessel, larger and more heavily armed than the rest. "Maintain course," Reed ordered. "Take us alongside the command ship. Prepare boarding teams." As the crew rushed to their stations, Reed felt a strange sense of calm. Everything had led to this moment. His years of military service, the first contact with the Vaughn, the battle for Mars. Whatever happened next would determine the future relationship between humans and this alien civilization. The Paragon slipped silently alongside the massive Vaughn command ship, extending docking clamps to its hull. No alarm sounded, no weapons fired. The stealth approach had worked. Reed addressed the boarding teams one final time before they deployed. "Remember your training. Move unpredictably. Don't engage in direct confrontation unless necessary. Our goal is capture, not destruction." Captain Singh checked her weapons. "We're ready, Commander." Reed nodded. "Then let's show the Vaughn what human combat really means." As the airlock opened, revealing the alien ship's interior, Reed led his team into unknown territory. The war had entered a new phase, one that would test humanity's greatest advantage: the ability to adjust, to think creatively, to turn weakness into strength. Inside the Vaughn vessel, silver-gray corridors stretched in geometric patterns. The boarding team activated their jamming devices. Immediately, the ship's internal systems flickered. In the distance, they heard the confused sounds of Vaughn guards responding to the unexpected disruption. "Move out," Reed ordered quietly. "Operation Human Advantages is a go." The interior of the Vaughn command ship was unlike anything Reed had seen before. The corridors formed flawless geometric patterns. Every angle precise, every surface smooth and metallic. It reminded him more of a mathematical equation than a military vessel. "Motion sensors ahead," Lieutenant Parker whispered, checking his scanner. "Standard pattern, 3-second intervals." Reed nodded. In human ships, security systems were typically randomized to prevent opponents from predicting safe moments to advance. The Vaughn, however, relied on flawless, unchanging patterns, just like their battle formations. "Wait for my mark," Reed instructed the team. 3, 2, 1, move." The squad darted forward between sensor sweeps, using the predictable timing to their advantage. They advanced deeper into the ship, encountering surprisingly little resistance. "This is too easy," Captain Singh muttered as they reached a junction. "Where are the guards?" Professor Wilson studied the ship's layout on his tablet. "They're likely concentrated around the command center." The Vaughn prioritized protecting hierarchy over securing the entire vessel. "Their mistake," Reed stated. "Deploy the second jamming device here." A technician placed the small device against the wall. When activated, it emitted a field that disrupted the Vaughn's telepathic network within a 100-meter radius. Throughout that zone, Vaughn soldiers would be cut off from their commanders, forced to think and act as individuals, something they had little experience doing. The team continued their advance, moving upward through the ship's levels. Occasionally, they encountered Vaughn guards. But the aliens appeared disoriented, their movements awkward and uncoordinated under the jammer's influence. The human soldiers made quick work of them using the sonic disruptors, which vibrated the Vaughn's stone-like skin at frequencies that caused intense pain without permanent damage. "We're approaching the command deck," Wilson reported after they had climbed several levels. "Security will be heaviest there." Reed checked his team. No casualties so far. The mission was proceeding better than he had dared hope. "Set the final jammers. Full spectrum disruption." We hit hard and fast. The squad positioned themselves around the sealed doors to the command center. At Reed's signal, they activated all remaining jammers at once. The effect was immediate. Through the doors, they heard confused shouts and the sound of equipment failing. "Breach now!" Reed ordered. The doors blew inward and the team stormed the command center. Inside, a dozen Vaughn officers stumbled about in confusion, their flawless coordination shattered by the jamming field. At the center of the room, on a raised platform, stood General Dorn, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly as he tried to comprehend what was happening. "Secure the room," Reed commanded. The team moved with practiced efficiency, subduing the Vaughn officers with minimal force. Reed approached Dorn directly, weapon raised. "General Dorn, by authority of the United Earth Government, you are being taken into custody." Dorn's upper eyes narrowed while his lower ones widened, an expression Reed couldn't interpret. "Commander Reed, this approach, it is not honorable combat. It's human combat," Reed replied. "Effective, adaptable, and now victorious." For a moment, Dorn seemed ready to resist. Then, surprising everyone, he lowered his weapon. "Fascinating. You have defeated our finest warriors, boarded our most secure vessel, and breached our command center with minimal casualties. How?" "We'll have time to discuss that later," Reed stated. "For now, you're coming with us." As Singh secured the general with specialized restraints, Wilson moved to the command center's main console. "Commander, I need time with their database." Reed nodded. "Do it quickly. We don't know how long our advantage will last." While Wilson worked, Reed studied Dorn more closely. The general showed no signs of fear or anger, only curiosity. "You fight like no species we have encountered," Dorn stated eventually. "Without structure, without predictability. We call it adaptability," Reed described. "It's how humans have survived and thrived." Dorn's head tilted slightly. "Against what opponent did you develop such methods? What force required such disorder in response?" The question caught Reed off guard. "Against ourselves primarily. Human history is filled with conflict between different groups, nations, ideologies. We've spent thousands of years learning to outthink opponents who think like us." This concept seemed to trouble Dorn deeply. Before he could respond, Wilson called out from the console. "Commander, I've accessed their central records. You need to see this." Reed joined the professor, leaving Singh to guard Dorn. "What have you found?" Wilson displayed a star map showing thousands of systems across the galaxy. The Vaughn control over 30 star systems, not just 12 as we thought. But he highlighted a specific region. "This is interesting. They've avoided this entire sector for centuries." "Why?" Reed asked. "According to their records, that region is controlled by a species called the Mrek. The Vaughn attempted conquest 300 years ago and were decisively defeated." Reed studied the information with growing interest. "Are the Mrek more advanced than the Vaughn?" "Not technologically," Wilson stated, scrolling through data. "But the Vaughn records describe them as unpredictable and lacking proper combat discipline." "Sound familiar?" Reed felt a smile forming. "Another species that doesn't fight by Vaughn rules." "Precisely. And there's more." Wilson brought up another file. "The Vaughn's attack on Earth wasn't just about testing us. They've been expanding their territory for centuries, conquering species they deem inferior in combat capability. It's their way of maintaining dominance in the galaxy. A preemptive strike," Reed realized. "They attack potential threats before they become actual threats." "Yes, but we surprised them just like the Mrek did." Wilson looked thoughtful. "If we could contact this other species, form an alliance." An alarm suddenly blared throughout the ship. Singh checked her scanner. "Commander, we've got multiple Vaughn soldiers approaching. The jamming field is weakening." Reed made a quick decision. "Download everything you can, Professor. We're leaving with the general." Wilson nodded, inserting a data device into the console. "Just another minute." As the team prepared for extraction, Reed returned to Dorn. "Your soldiers are coming, General. We can make this difficult, or you can order them to stand down and come with us peacefully." Dorn studied Reed with all 4 eyes. "To what purpose?" "You cannot hope to defeat the entire Vaughn collective." "Perhaps not alone," Reed admitted. "But we don't need to defeat you. Just convince you that a war with humanity isn't in your interest." After a moment's consideration, Dorn nodded, a tactical withdrawal to reassess. I understand this concept. He activated his communication device, issuing orders in the clicking language Reed had heard before. Almost immediately, the alarm stopped. They will not interfere with our departure, Dorn stated. I am curious to learn more about human combat philosophy. Reed didn't fully trust the general's sudden cooperation, but they had little choice. Wilson, are you done? The professor removed his data device from the console. Got everything we need. Then let's move out. Back to the Paragon. Same formation, same precautions. The team retraced their steps through the Vaughn vessel, this time with General Dorn in their midst. True to his word, they encountered no resistance. Vaughn's soldiers stood aside, watching with what Reed interpreted as confusion as their general was led away by human captors. When they reached the airlock where the Paragon was docked, Reed felt a tension he hadn't realized he was carrying begin to ease. They had done it, completed what many had considered a suicide mission, captured the enemy commander, and gathered crucial intelligence. The journey back to Earth was uneventful. Dorn remained a cooperative prisoner, spending hours in conversation with Reed and Wilson about human history, warfare, and evolution. The general's curiosity seemed genuine, his questions thoughtful and penetrating. Your species evolved fighting itself, Dorn stated during one such discussion. This explains much. The Vaughn evolved fighting large predators that hunted in predictable patterns. Our coordination, our formation, our discipline all developed to counter threats that were physically superior but tactically simple. And when you developed advanced technology, you never needed to change your approach, Wilson added, because it worked against every species you encountered. Until now, Reed stated. Dorn's upper eyes blinked slowly. Yes, until humans. The Paragon returned to Earth amid celebration. News of the mission's success had spread quickly, boosting morale worldwide. President Wilson herself greeted the ship when it landed in Geneva. Commander Reed, she stated warmly. Once again, you've done the impossible. Reed saluted. Just following the principles of human combat, Madam President. Wilson turned her attention to Dorn, who stood flanked by guards. General, welcome to Earth. Dorn studied the human leader. Your world is chaotic, unpredictable, like your combat methods. We call it diverse, Wilson replied, and yes, sometimes chaotic, but that diversity gives us strength. Over the following days, negotiations began between Earth and the Vaughn Collective. Dorn, acting as representative of his people, displayed a surprising willingness to discuss peace terms. In a private meeting with Reed and President Wilson, the general explained his change in attitude. The data your professor gathered from our ships has surely told you that the Vaughn Collective is vast, Dorn began. We could continue this conflict for years, decades, but the outcome is no longer certain. Because of what we showed you about human combat, President Wilson asked. Dorn's 4 eyes focused on her. Partly, but also because of what we learned about your history. You developed your unusual combat methods through conflict with yourselves. Thousands of years of adjusting, evolving, outthinking opponents who thought like you. He paused, his stone-like face impossible to read. The Vaughn have never experienced this. When we fight among ourselves, it is brief, ritualized, following strict patterns. We never needed to develop the creativity that humans possess. Reed leaned forward. And now you're afraid we'll keep adjusting, keep finding new ways to counter your advantages. Not afraid, Dorn corrected. Intrigued. You have shown us a fundamental flaw in our approach to warfare, a flaw the Mrek exploited centuries ago, causing us to avoid their territory ever since. Professor Wilson's eyes widened. You want to learn from us? Yes. Dorn straightened in his chair. The Vaughn Collective proposes not just peace, but exchange. Your officers will teach ours about human combat philosophy. Our officers will share our technology and knowledge of the galaxy. President Wilson looked skeptical. And why would we help make your military stronger? Because the galaxy contains threats greater than either of us alone, Dorn replied simply. The Mrek are expanding. Other species develop new technologies daily. Together, humans and Vaughn would be formidable. Reed caught the president's eye. The data they had recovered from the Vaughn ship confirmed Dorn's claims about galactic politics. An alliance could benefit both species. We'll need time to consider your proposal, President Wilson stated finally. Dorn nodded. Of course, consideration before action. Another human trait we might benefit from adopting. 3 months later, Reed stood before a class of 30 Vaughn officers in the newly established Interspecies Combat Academy. The facility, built in the neutral territory of Earth's moon, served as the center for the cultural and military exchange program that had grown from the peace treaty. The fundamental principle of human warfare, Reed described to his alien students, is adaptation. No plan survives first contact with the opponent. No tactic works forever. The moment you establish a pattern, a good adversary will exploit it. The Vaughn officers took notes with meticulous precision. They struggled with concepts like improvisation and individual initiative, but they were learning. In the observation room, General Dorn watched alongside President Wilson and Professor Wilson. "They find it difficult," Dorn admitted. "Our biology, our psychology, everything about us favors structure and coordination. But they are trying, and our officers are equally challenged by Vaughn combat simulators," Wilson noted. "The level of coordination your species achieves is remarkable." President Wilson smiled slightly. "Perhaps that's the point. Each of us has strength the other lacks. Together, we're stronger than either alone." Dorn's upper eyes blinked in what they had come to recognize as agreement. "Indeed, the Vaughn thought we understood combat until we started a war with humans. Now we understand that true combat mastery comes from combining different approaches, different strengths." In the classroom, Reed continued his lesson. "Today, we'll discuss asymmetric warfare, how smaller forces can effectively counter larger ones through unconventional tactics." As the Vaughn officers leaned forward, eager despite their discomfort with the concept, Reed reflected on how far they had come. From first contact to near destruction to an unlikely alliance, the journey had been unpredictable, chaotic, and ultimately successful, just like human combat itself. In the vast galaxy beyond their solar system, new challenges and threats awaited. But for the first time, Reed felt confident that humanity would face them not alone, but with allies who brought different strengths to the fight. The Vaughn had learned to respect human combat methods, and humans had gained access to advanced technology and knowledge of the wider galaxy. Together, they were ready for whatever came next.